Hello everybody, today I'm going to discuss about the dark matter and its comparison with the soul of God. Like I've said this before, dark matter, although the scientists think it is somehow a sphere, in reality it is not. It is the soul of God itself, it somehow overlaps with one galaxy and somehow triggers its movement. What we have to understand is how this works and we try to prove it, to explain its behavior. Now, we look into the universe and we see only two patterns. One is a sphere, a galaxy which is a sphere, and the other one is a rare case, let's call it like that, when it is a disk. Now, if I have a galaxy which it is a disk, not all of them are like that. I have to question if in the past there were a lot of galaxies in the form of a sphere, what happened? Somehow we ended up with a galaxy with time in this shape. Now, when we look at a galaxy and we see it spinning in this direction, if there is nothing here, this doesn't mean there is no dark matter here or something. I don't see anything moving there, so I assume there is nothing there. But the question is, if this is a disk, shouldn't I assume that there is something here which also moves? Let's call it the space itself, if you want, but there is no mass, there is no stars. I don't see any movement. So if I would say I would have a sphere like this one, and this sphere with spin in this direction, I would not be far from this situation. I will be somehow in this position, but if there is nothing here and I don't see anything moving, I say, okay, this is a disk, something separately. But I think this is just a rare case of a sphere, and we should call this also a spherical galaxy, but with nothing in this area. Okay, not all the galaxies are like this. So if we want to understand what is happening, how it's happening, and why we can end up from a spherical galaxy to the one which it is a disk, we have to approach all the things we have in this universe and see how these things may trigger this special movement. Now, like I've said in the past, we have three things in this universe: mass, radiation, and the soul of God. These are only three elements possible. Mass is somehow rare, radiation is more often, it somehow spreads into the universe, and the soul of God is everywhere. We know that God is everywhere from the ancient books. So, let's take the first one and let's say a galaxy from the shape of a sphere moves to a disk because of gravity. Well, I have a problem here. Gravity is concentrated and it stays close to the stars or the planet if you want, but in the case of a galaxy you're going to look at the stars. If this is a gravity and the distance between us and the nearby star, which is Alpha Centauri, is 4.2 light years, the problem is these two stars don't see each other. And this mechanism, because they are too far, is the same one with all the other stars in any galaxy in the universe. None of the stars know they are inside the galaxy, and every star here doesn't know there are other stars around it because they do not see each other. So whatever happens that triggers this movement is not gravity, it's not concentrated gravity, because constant gravity is local and any star doesn't reach with its gravity the surrounding stars. So gravity cannot explain it. Okay, let's move now to distributed gravity, which is radiation. So I have the sun and I have some stars around it, Alpha Centauri. We are taking this case. And I shoot out light, but there is a limit with the speed of light. And it takes 4.2 light years to reach the nearby star. So after 4.2 years, in our case, the nearby star can see the sun. But there is an inertia here. And while these 4 years are passing by, the sun moves. And also Alpha Centauri moves in a certain manner. So the situation is it looks to me that also stars see each other from radiation point of view after a while. The delay is too big to explain such an ordinary movement. Basically, look at this star over here. It will take hundreds of thousands of years until it will reach this star over here, where is a connection. There is a connection between this star here and this star here to explain this movement. It is not. The speed of light is too small in compared to the size of a galaxy. It's just too small. So this doesn't help us. But something moves. A dark matter, the way you want to call it, something moves in a very constant manner over millions of years. It doesn't change and holds these stars together. The only thing that can do that is the soul of God. Like many things into this universe, we don't see it because it's invisible. Can you see the air into this room? That is impossible. Can you see radiation around the magnet in this room right now? We cannot see it because it doesn't have a color associated. Like the air, like the electromagnetic field, the soul of God also doesn't have a color associated. So we cannot see it. It's right now into this room. It overlaps with everything, but you cannot see it. It doesn't mean it's not here because you don't see it. So now we have to think what is happening. We have a spherical galaxy which moves after a while into this shape. How is this happening? It's because of the movement of the soul of God. And we have to understand also why. In order to understand the universe, we need to answer all these three questions, not necessarily in this order. It would be nice. But if we answer two or from three is good enough. If we answer to one of these three, it's something which is better than nothing. If we don't know anything about these three questions, we are in the dark. So, at least in this case, we have this. Some of the spherical galaxies move after a while into this shape. This is what is going on. How it's going on, it's a little difficult to explain, but we are going to talk about it. But I have to question why it's going on. Why are not all the galaxies spherical? This is what puzzles me. Something happens into the universe for a reason. If you look at a galaxy, for sure this galaxy hasn't been colliding with anything for a while in order to stay in this shape. This is something which we can say about a galaxy, but not all the galaxies form this shape. So the reason why we have them, this rare case, is very simple. I have said this in the previous videos. There is a radiation cycle in the universe, like the water cycle in nature, and it works like this. This star over here shoots out light in all directions. And after a while, this light, after millions of years, it hits the wall. This is an impenetrable wall. And when it hits the wall, it is returned into the universe under the form of jets. If these jets coming out from center of galaxies, mass and radiation at very, very high speed, they would just destroy everything in their path. If this would happen in a case of a spherical galaxy, over here, all these stars would be destroyed. Everything here would be destroyed. That would cause a very serious problem. And the question is, why would I have these stars over here? It's an effort. And all these stars are going to be destroyed, and there will be a lot of disturbance in this area. I would have to question the stability of this galaxy in this manner. So my understanding is this doesn't happen, or at least almost not at all. In this case, it doesn't make sense to shoot out jets in these spherical galaxies. Jets form clouds and then planets and stars later on. You have to do this separately. And if you do this from this point into the universe, you need nothing here. So if there are stars here, you have to take them out, and the planets and everything that is there, so they will not be destroyed. So in every single second, there is a giant amount of energy which hits the wall. And this energy, it is returned, at this point, and being shot out. In some of the of the galaxy which are a disk, not all the time. This is let's say a balance between the energy which hits this wall and the total energy which is being shot out from some center of some galaxies. The quantity is the same. It's a preservation of energy, if you want. Now, this is the reason why we have some of the galaxies under this shape. They are needed for the radiation cycle in the universe. Now, my question still remains now, if I understand why is this galaxy needed, so we have just not hitting anything, what is going on is a transfer between a spherical galaxy to a galaxy which is a disk. The main question is how? How is this happening? Is this a natural phenomenon? It will happen with time to all the spherical galaxies or not? It's a little difficult to say, but I'm going to try to provide an answer. Going back in time to the beginning, where the universe was a cloud of mass, and all the mass was gathering into small planets and then stars, given the mechanism of previous collisions, there were no galaxies formed yet, and everything was moving around in all directions. Stars ignited, some of them were bigger, some others were smaller. So, gathering of stars somehow happened in some certain area, and let's say less amount of mass appeared between them. But we are still far from forming galaxies. This mechanism moving on and on somehow created pockets of stars and empty space around them. These are the bursts of the galaxy, if you want. Now I have to question, if all these stars move randomly within a swarm, how would that trigger a perfect spherical movement? That is what puzzles me, and I'm going to give you a simple example in compare with what I have explained already about the creation of the solar system and the sun. The situation is like this. At the beginning, the surface of the sun was having this shape, and all the mass of the surface of the gas was moving in all directions. And after some millions of years, we have this ordinary fashion movement with the sun. So somehow the sun moved from this position to this position because of the presence of the planets around it. So gravity explains this movement from this case to this case. If this case is here and this case is here, but I cannot use gravity, something else triggers it. So I need another force which is not gravity, concentrated or distributed, to put me from this situation into this situation. And the only element which I can see is the soul of God itself. Now, I have to question, if I know that at subatomic level there is no time and things happen all in the same time, causality still works. So if I have something generating something else, if there is no delay and I'm looking at it, they both come in the same time, but still causality works, which means this one is first and the other one is second. In order to know this, we have to look into our world, how things happen, and at subatomic level, things must be happening somehow similar, more or less. Once again, causality, which works at our level, where there is time, still works at subatomic level. So I have to question, which one is first? Stars moving randomly and by a certain manner, starting to move by a sphere and moving the galaxy itself and dragging the soul of God after them, or it's the soul of God moving first and then the stars coming after it. It's one of these two. And you don't have to be super intelligent to see which one it is. This universe is made by God, so things do not happen totally at random. If you would be God, you would not let stars just bouncing each other and expecting after some billions of years to form this ordinary movement. That is just outrageous. Things do not happen in this manner. Something needs to happen in order to have this movement. And if it is not mass, it is not radiation, it must be you. It must be the soul of God. So it is the soul of God which moves first, and that is dragging the stars after it. This is the order how it works. First, it's a movement of the soul of God, which the scientists call it dark matter, and then that drags the stars after it. The stars move in all directions. So if I have a galaxy at the beginning with many stars, some of them move like this, some are like this, some are like this. Some of the stars may have already a loop, let's say, others not. Some others may have a very long loop like this one. You never know, it could be possible. We have various cases, and the total number of stars here is hundreds of thousands. How can that lead to a situation when we have this movement? We have a very stable movement of a sphere moving in this direction. This doesn't happen by chance. It will never happen. We have to wait too much time to have all the stars moving somehow at some moment in this direction. Why? Because of what? Something should trigger it. It doesn't trigger it. It doesn't happen by chance. It is what overlaps with this galaxy itself which is creating this movement. Outside the galaxy, the soul of God doesn't move, it stands still. But here it moves. So what is happening is, after a while, if you have this movement, consider it is somehow similar with pressure. The mechanism is not exactly the same, but it's similar with pressure. If the speed is high, the pressure is low. If the speed is low, the pressure is high. And we know this in our laboratory, at our level. Somehow, at this high level, situation is a little very close. Not exactly like that, but it's somehow there. Which means if the speed is higher here, at this level, somehow stars are being taken down, they are being pushed down to this direction. Like this. Okay, it takes millions of years. And these stars here, which initially were under the form of a sphere, they are somehow, after some time, end up in the solar disk. It takes millions of years, but eventually they end up here. And this is happening not necessarily to all the galaxies. If you start this process, but after a while you hit some other galaxy which has a different shape, it's all over. It will take some other time, much more time to reach this shape. But as the universe gets more concentrated, there is less amount of things you may hit. So after a while, which we do have into the universe, we are 13 billion years later, this is happening. This phenomenon, we can see it into the universe. And this is why we have this strange shape of some galaxies, which shows to me that if I'm looking at a galaxy like this one, it must be old. And we have this into the universe. I would say the universe has enough time. I would not say it's very old, but that is a personal appreciation, but it's somehow old. That is enough time for this kind of settle down to happen. And we have this into the universe. If we look into a telescope, we can see galaxies like this one. And in galaxies like this one, every once in a while, we see these jets, which are the radiation cycle in the universe, circling around. This is a mechanism which shows to me that if we have not the mass, not radiation, triggering this movement, whatever it is that it must trigger, it must be the soul of God. And that is what is moving around this center point, dragging everything with it. If you want, it's like space moving itself, although space is standing still. But the fact that the soul of God moves, it drags everything within a certain area. And that is what is happening with this galaxy after a while reaching this point. To put it to the test, we should have a star putting here, appearing out of nothing, and I would look at it if there is a sphere or not. If there is movement here, So I'm saying that probably after some time, this star appearing here, moving in this direction, should somehow have this movement. It will go down and eventually it will end up within the disk. But that is just an approximation. We cannot say it is happening exactly like that. It takes a lot of time, and the most important thing, other forces from outside must not affect this pattern. Because if we bring collisions with other galaxies or other strange elements, the situation may not work. That is one of the problems in this universe, because if we measure things in billions of years, it is enough time to overlap with a lot of rare events, and those are difficult to estimate. Still, the mechanism which we can end up from a spherical galaxy to a disk galaxy, it is this one. It is not mass, it is not radiation, it is a soul of God which moves itself and ends up in this situation with some of the galaxies. This is what I wanted to explain, and I think the situation is like this one. Feel free to feedback me and tell me your opinion.